Okay. Yes, Amar.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for giving me this chance to speak to you, and I hope I'll do some justice to this presentation. Well, as you can see, this is the...
You have to hold it close, Amar. Otherwise, it won't be recorded.
Okay. So this is the group on behalf of whom I'm going to make this presentation, the House of Tata. But it's a wonderful case in the sense that you can understand a lot of strategy through a company like this, because it has operated for about 100 years and it has had visionaries and excellent leaders. You have seen to the table there are many excellent leaders in the company with a certain clear-cut vision which goes with the interest of the nation. So it's more of an analysis, it's more of analyzing advantages of this company. How did they build these advantages? How did they extend these advantages? And what problems did they face during the course of time? And how did they reorganize these advantages in the recent past? So let's look at the first point. That's how did they go about building advantages? When we say advantages, we mean resources, skills, and networks. How did they build these advantages? There are, of course, always two areas, that is internal capabilities and managing externality. In the internal capabilities, you'll see that they had excellent leadership with clear vision. All the three, Jamshedji, JRD, and Ratan Tata. And there were many other leaders within the company. The internal financial backup was very strong. They started by selling some of their assets in the beginning, around 1907, where they invested in Tata Steel, of which they got some money from the market, but at least 11% was their own money. Of course, they were very well supported by the Parsi community as well. So that was a very important resource strength, internal capability. They, of course, had the access to mines, iron ore and coal, again, very rich resource. They had huge assets they built over a period of time. As given in the case, they had $318 million in 1951, $877 million in 1965, and $2,125 million in 1981. Huge growth in that asset base, which is again internal strength. Well, they also went into very early investment in the core sectors and service sectors. Core sectors, hydroelectric power. They went into the steel industry, also into some of the other core sectors. In the service sectors, airline was one of the early investments. And they also had early induction of professional managers. Unlike family-run houses, business houses in India, they were the first ones to induct professional managers from outside, expertise from outside. And they took hold, or they were controlling the management of the business. They also introduced progressive industrial relationships, which again given in the case, that the policies that they introduced in the company were ahead of the even US steel industry, that you can see in the case again. Again, very interesting, cross-holding among group companies. Again, it's a very strong strength that they can derive from each other by sharing their assets, their networks. And whenever they have a problem, sister companies were obviously funded by the cash-rich companies. Early entry to foreign markets was now the case, that they could establish networks in the foreign market, which they have used it in the recent past. And you can see that this year, this quarter, they have made very huge profits, huge turnover in the export business. And of course, the technical tie-ups, very strong technical know-how, which is becoming the key of success in today's business, your technology, your technological capabilities. Well, this is the internal capabilities. Besides that, the managing externality, which Professor just mentioned in the beginning of the class, the corporate mission was very important. Corporate mission also important because it was aligned to that of the nation. Whatever the nation was putting as its vision, the corporate put its vision as that is to build a strong nation. So invest in core sectors. Developed a highly respected corporate image, very, very valuable. In the year 1907, they could generate money from the public because of this trust that they could build with the public. They could start the steel factory with that. Of course, they had proximity to power centers in the pre-independence period. You see that business plan that was Bombay plan that was designed after in the 1950s. That they could decide what should be the externality for themselves. So they could influence the political power. Now, building these advantages over some period of time, they did extend these advantages. That we have seen two different periods, regulated period and free market period. So we have seen in two areas, that is until 1980, how did they extend these advantages? Huge resource base and cross-holdings was used to diversify into other businesses. Also, the license Raj was also a reason for diversifying into other businesses. They extended financial support to sister concerns which were having problems. They turned around many downstream businesses by Tata Steel. Okay. So all these issues are mentioned in the case. The progressive industrial relations which they implemented helped to build satisfied and motivated employees. And they didn't lose employees because of that. So they could retain all the knowledge base that employees learned within the company. And that was it. That's extending your advantage. Foreign to overseas markets led to generation of huge amounts of forex for themselves, and which also gave them a good image with the government, because that was a source to create foreign exchange for the government, for the country. Then they expanded through vertical integration. Several examples are there. You can see the steel industry. They have highly invested along the vertical integration. Managerial and technical skills, diversification into chemical industry. Because of just Mr. Seth, Darbari Seth, they went into especially the chemical industry, business, which is again cited in the case. The ethical practices helped develop revered corporate image. That's what I said by saying that they could demand, or they could have high stock market value in the industry. Now, in the post-1980 period, how did they go about? The huge asset base, skilled manpower, and technical tie-ups helped them to have high quality in products and services. Again, a very good competitive advantage. And they maintained leadership in many businesses because of such asset bases, such advantages. The indigenous car, passenger car, Indica, again, it's very, very unlikely of an Indian company to have a product which is completely, a product like car, to be completely indigenized. Because of the advantages in other areas, they could achieve that. Growth and expansion of TCS is another extension of the advantages. It's also said in the case that strong distribution network for heavy commercial vehicle was used to sell light commercial vehicles, and in a year, their sales was more than all the competitors together. So you can see some advantage was again extended to benefit in other businesses. Early entry to foreign overseas markets, export earnings high, that we have already discussed. Again, they did this in the 1980s, and comes out very, very clearly in the recent, in the last quarter, where they have done extremely well in the export of steel. Creative talent of employees was utilized in new ventures. That's when there were so many people, so many talented people who could be retained in the company, and they were well utilized after 1991 when they went into many other newer areas. Knowledge in service industry was extended to other service sectors. Obviously, they are going to retailing now, which is of course not mentioned in the case, but as we all know that Tata is such a popular case that we know, and we see that they are extending those advantages in the recent times, and at least they have been extending this over a long time.
Are you watching the clock?
One more minute? Or?
You have 1 more minute. I'll give you 1 extra minute.
Okay. The advantages never remain as advantages. Sometimes they become disadvantages with time because the externality keeps changing. So benevolent Tata philosophy led to overmanning of the company, and it had problems post 1991 era. Company, the directors they stayed in the company for a longer time, and then that kind of demotivated people down below. Weakening of group ties, we have seen that. It happened before 1991. Ratan Tata came in and started saying that we should have strong ties. But that led to competition between group companies. And also some of them some of the managers violated Tata ethos. Pride prevailed over profitability. when they wanted to shut down textiles, many of the executives felt that they shouldn't, and they kind of gave more importance to the pride of Tata Group as a whole than looking at the profitability part. And of course, they were slow to change. They were defensive in 1970. Cement and passenger cars, they were late. Voltas, when R. Sarin came in, he was not accepted in the company. There were a lot of problems. He had to leave finally. 1983 strategic plan of Ratan Tata was also not accepted. It was kind of rejected, which later on, of course, seeing the problems, they had to reorganize their advantages. And that's what they have been doing, as given in the case, which Ratan Tata started in 1983, and subsequently in 1991, his plans, they started reorganizing those advantages to again exploit the changing environment. Corporate restructuring, to spin off non-core or mature assets like the textile business and other non-profitable business. Improve group ties and leverage group strength. Again, Ratan Tata emphasized on this. And they have gone into invest in certain areas like high technology industries, financial services and insurance, service sectors and retailing. And of course, we also propose that they should expand to overseas market. Just not export, but go into manufacturing. They could use third country parameter as a means to expand their international business. For instance, they could have a plant in, say, Malaysia or a similar country in Indonesia to target Japanese market, or they can have a plant in China and target Japanese market. They can have a plant in South America and target American market. So that's the third country parameter strategy which they can use. Just not export, but extend or vertically integrate along this manufacturing activities. So that's about the case, and thank you very much.
We have 5 minutes for penetrating questions. To my mind, the house of Tata is not just any old case. It is inextricably tied up with the industrialization of this country, the industrial development. So I expect you to ask good questions. It's not just any case. Yes.
You mentioned in the last slide about its corporate restructuring, and you said that they could spin off some non-core or matured assets.
They have not. They are planning to. That's
right. Now, in the case of Tata, what exactly can we classify as non-core?
Non-core in the sense that they focus, Ratan Tata as given in the case, they have been focusing on high technology products. So products which are not high technology oriented, which can be duplicated, copied by competitors, is a non-core product for them.
Any other questions?
Is competition between good companies always a disadvantage?
Competition between good companies is not a disadvantage when the whole market is highly competitive. It gives a lot of chance to improve. But when the environment is not competitive, it's some kind of, you can maintain a certain amount of stability on prices and reduce your managerial capabilities into trying to solve problems between the companies. So it is an advantage and disadvantage depending on the external environment. Probably today, or maybe 10 years down the line, good competition is what will be required. In fact, in the Japanese industry, going out of the case, there is a huge amount of competition between the 11 automakers. There's a huge amount of competition within Japan. But when they go out, because of the competition in-house, they can compete very well outside.
Any other questions?
The last quarter earnings.
This is regarding the present state of Tata Group. Just for the addiction, the kind of addiction towards high technology, is it hindering their growth? Like they are into, particularly in telecom sector, they are into different competing technologies which are competing with each other. So, is it really helpful? Is it
Like what? What is competing with each other?
So, like kind of in the mobile market, in the mobile telephony market, they have two technologies which are competing worldwide. Tata has the presence in both the technologies in India. So, is it a worthwhile strategy to follow?
Yeah, it's, you would be reading in marketing that you try to block the range of products. So if you are not able to capture some customers on this range, you're able to customer on the other range. So it's a very well practiced strategy.
Yeah, one last question.
Okay, there are many hands, but I think
We can discuss that right at the end, but we have to move on with the
This
other.
last quarter earnings, were there for this 2001, 2002 that we were talking?
yes.
You said exporter, I mean the steel that you were talking about. I guess it's an industry-wide phenomenon rather than a company-wide, because China's demand has been so huge that even SIC industries like Ispat and SR, they have shown growth. Like from red they have come back to black. So it's not a, I don't think it's a company-specific trend. It's just a cycle in the industry that
You are right in the sense that both SAIL and Tatas have done extremely well. It may be industry phenomena, but had they not been in this business, had they not built this capability, they would not have used the advantage that the market offers today.
It's already, I mean, I don't think that, what I'm saying is that it's not differentiated. The power has not been differentiated. The brand power has not been differentiated, because Ispat and SR also got orders, and even they are not doing very well.
Ispat
And SRC also got orders.
well, that's not in the news.
Can-
I'm talking from the news.
Can we
item.
now wrap up this, because otherwise it will go on and on. We'll reserve your question till the end when we come back for a general discussion, okay? So thank you very much. May I have group 2 please? My suggestion was someone who hasn't presented earlier should be given a chance to present. Are you following the same logic? Good.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, friends. As Mr. Amar has nicely presented the entire case, I don't think I've got.
You've got a lot more. You can present nicer. Hold the
presented
microphone.
everything, so
No, he has presented a lot of facts. Now let's get some logic.
what
As I
want
said,
to
this
say
is
that-
a special case, House of Tata.
What I feel that there are two different Tatas. One in the time of JRD, and other one which is there right now in the time of Ratan Tata. In the time of JRD Tata, there were regional satraps like Mr. Darbari said, Suman Mulgaonkar. All these people were having the one company which they were managing without any central control over them. The Tata group as such was having, Tata Sons was having some 8 to 10% shares. It is said that at one time Mr. G.D. Birla was having more shares than Tata Sons in Tisco. And all these companies were in the sort of, not exactly, but doing politics among the seniors, as between Rusi Modi and Suman Mulgaonkar and Darbari Seth, Nani Palkiwala with Ratan Tata. What was that at that time? Company was fragmented with regional people. Darbari Seth there at Mithapur and these people at Jamshedpur.
Was it the company or the group?
What's that?
You
Tata
said
Chemicals?
company was fragmented. Are you referring to the group,
Yeah,
the
group.
House of
The
Tata?
House of Tata
All
was
right.
fragmented with different companies with different heads. Then
Either fragmented or enriched is the way you look at it. Is it not?
I think so that the group was not that cohesive.
Group was not
proper-
cohesive. See,
not
the point
proper
I am
coordinated
making,
Group also, sir. The only thing was that the one organization that Tata Sons was having share in all this. That's why they are a part of the group, and they are using Tata brand.
we'll have some questions on this. He says it was really not a group. It's just that a few financial holdings. Now, whether that is right or not, we'll debate it.
And there were, as such, the people who were handpicked by Mr. J.R.D. Tata. As Darbari Seth was there in 1939, he was just came back from his study and he was instructed to put up a factory of Tata Chemicals. And there he, and Mr. J.R.D. there identified Suman Mulgaonkar and he instructed him to put up a factory Tata locomotives. Like all these people were handpicked by Mr. J.R.D. and they were reporting to him. And as such, Mr. J.R.D. was himself very much involved with the operation of Air India. And as he, it is said that he neglected all his companies in favor of Air India. And Tata Steel was, other Tata companies were not said that they are very much aggressive compared to G.D. Birla group of company or any other company which are there at that time. As Tata, they could have diversified, but they were basically in their shell and trying to defend themselves from others. Then they tried to come up with new technology products like Tata IBM or Tata Unisys. But most of in these days, Tata was just like a portfolio investor with just Tata brand name there to support the international technology. And Tata was not getting anything much from that. And all these things were changed with the Ratan Tata. He came up with, first he came up in telco and he tried to increase the cross holding, and then he tried to take on all these regional bosses who were there, Mr. Ajit Kerkar, Mr. Rishi Modi and all people. And he made a group cohesive with a Tata brand name, and there was a alliance for every company has to pay some money to use the Tata brand name to Tata Sons. And then he tried to get old people out, and now new professionals were there in the organization. And now the Tata was no more involved with all this group where they are just for the namesake. Now Tata having all the company in which they were having a greater share. And in the meantime, they increases the overseas exposure. Right now, Tata Steel is coming with a ferrochrome plant in South Africa. They have got mining contract in Australia also. Likewise, Tata International has been formed and it's regularly exporting the Tata goods. And Tata Shoes is the major leather exporter from India. All these things change with the Tata Steel, and the average age of the management also came down. This is and now the Tata is considered to be aggressive as well as adhering to the old values of Mr. Jamshedji Tata. And the future prospects of Tata will depend much on the successor of Mr. Ratan Tata. That is, if it is Noel Tata, it will also depend. It will depend on how he functions. Whether he is going to change the philosophy he will go back to old philosophy of Mr. JRD, or he will stick to the way Mr. Ratan Tata has evolved Tata in last 10 or 15 years.
Old philosophy of JRD or JN Tata?
So JN Tata was there for only 4 or 5 years before. Before Tisco came up.
Who was the founder?
Sir,
Don't
Mr.
talk of Tisco, talk of the house of Tata.
Sir, house of Tata was there. During JN Tata time, they were having only few textile mills, and they were investing in Tata Steel.
I'll read out to you something, all right, just to set the record in order.
So Mr. JN Tata died in 1903. At that time, Tata Steel was coming up, and they were having a few plants like Swadesi mill, and he was basically a textile trader. And he tried to invest in textile and the new factory which was coming up.
What was the vision in terms of value?
So what he said that he was he wanted to invest in core industry to make India self-reliant.
He was after business. He was after good businesses to make money. What was the core value? Let someone else say. Was he in nation building? Not to make money.
No, sir. If someone is in a business, he is there to make money.
So, for him, the acquisition of wealth was, then he is quoting here in quotes, always subordinate to constant desire in his heart to improve the industrial and intellectual condition of the people of the country. I think it was a very noble and lofty value that he held.
But he was in the business, sir, and his primary interest was to take his business forward.
We will discuss that. I think there is more to it, because if you can pass on, today when you talk of Tatas, what is the brand equity that comes in your mind?
Sir, high quality.
What else? Integrity. Does it not come? It's not easy to get this value extended over a long period of time through the thick and thin, the vicissitudes of business. There was a very tough period that they went through. All right, what did they do at that time? They went into a defensive mode. Did they join the pack? There was a period here when what happened to the basic values of the country? What happened? More materialistic. How did they conduct their business? It's all put here in the case. What did the Tatas do?
Tata were just, they didn't get anything, sir. They just tried to keep their assets intact.
All right. They went into a defensive mode, that is to protect whatever they had. Why? Because they didn't want to do business in the way that the others were doing. Isn't that a value? Or is not a value?
Maybe so, but he's doing it on the shareholders' money. That is what I feel.
You have a refreshingly different point of view, for which I applaud you. All right. Now you
No,
wrap up your presentation. We'll come into questions. Okay? Come.
So what I feel that now Tata Group is going on a good direction, and I think that Tata will again regain its #1 position in India. That's it.
That's it?
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? What does chapter 6 say? Can you bring some framework of chapter 6 into this presentation?
Sir, vertical integration, diversification into related and unrelated businesses.
What did they get into which was related? They went into steel first. What else? They were in textiles. Did they extend the textile?
No, sir.
No. They persisted with it. All right. What else?
So from HCV to LCV.
So they went to
They went into automotive industry.
One point to make here.
They could not extend as per what is described.
No, let's extend this argument. We are talking of whether they diversified in an integrated manner or in a haphazard, unrelated manner. What did they do? Unrelated. Why? Why? Why do you say it's unrelated?
Textiles to steel to power to hotels.
Okay.
There is no connection there.
All right.
He was mainly interested in those industries which he felt that India had not learned from West. For example, the steel, where he says that his main aim initially was to modernize India.
In order to modernize, you have to get into areas which no one else has ventured before.
But those were infrastructure areas.
Yes, sir. That way it was related.
Okay.
That way it was related.
And what else? He wanted to get into areas which later the government of India got in because of a regulatory requirement, isn't it? Then they had to exit because infrastructure, steel, these were all taken into the government sector.
They went into airlines also.
They went into airlines right in the beginning.
They pioneered the airlines in India.
Sure, that is what the discussion is. They wanted to make a strong economic India. They went into insurance. Okay. Doesn't mention here, but they were in banking too.
Central Bank was there.
Okay.
Central Bank, New India Insurance, all these things.
What else? What else? I'm surprised both groups hasn't mentioned one thing.
So
I wonder.
Very much in charity, sir. They Tata Memorial Hospital, cancer, and then that IISC, and all these things. These were written by Mr. J.N. Tata only, and his son. All they have implemented it. The IISC concept was at that time unheard of. Even
So did they build any culture?
yes,
I mean, a brand equity, it's part of a culture also, has a very, very strong contribution to building a brand equity. When you talk of Tatas, you talk of Birlas. There is a reference to Birlas also in this case. Was there a basic difference in their values and their way? The values translated into strategies of doing business? Tell me what was the basic difference as given in the case between house of Birlas, house of Tatas? Professionalism and?
Birlas are mostly run by the family members.
Well, what it says is the management and the finance. These are run by the extended family members, not operations, management and finance. That is the jugular vein of the business, what you control. What about Tatas?
They were professional right from the day one.
Fully professional or they
professional
want
managements at most of the levels.
For each company to grow individually, independently.
At the middle level, there were professional managers.
Okay.
At the board level, most of the persons were from party committee.
all right.
But most of them were
controlled business.
Okay. What does the case say about the Parsi community? What did they think of Tata? Was it just a company or a business?
They took pride in it.
And
Parsi
looked up to
Took it
them.
more
Like
as
a
a
jewel in
charity
the times of
rather than
business.
They took it more as a charity,
rather than business center.
or they took it as a pride, apro Tata. They will never sell, the Parsis, any share of Tata Steel through thick and thin. So it went beyond a business. Nowadays the modern concept doesn't justify this. You say if you invest and in any portfolio, you shouldn't be emotionally involved. You should be only cerebrally involved. Buy and sell. But at the time when the nation was being built and you had these pioneers, the concept was different of business. And even the whole community went and backed up this concept. Okay, I think we end here. I expect the groups that are coming to also touch upon the various phases which took place, of the environment, and how, when the environment changes, how you align your strategy with the environment. I would expect some people to say that, because it started off at the turn of the century and right up to a few years ago, this case, there were distinct phases of radical change in environment, business environment. So how did the House of Tatas adapt to that? And right now they seem to be on a successful path. Okay? Next group, 3. What is the time?
6:40.
6:40. You have till 6:52. 6:52 you have till.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, friends. Well, discussing the House of Tatas. In 1938, J.R.D. Tata took over the reins of Tata and
Took over the reins. R-E-I-N-S is reins, as is R-A-I-N. The pronunciation is reins.
took over the reins of
Ruins, nahi, reins.
over the reins.
Yeah, reins.
He took over the reins of Tata House, and he resolved to dedicate myself and the firm to the task of carrying on Jamshedji Tata's vision of a politically free and economically strong India. This was his vision. Our group has tried to align with the concepts of Chapter 6, that is on corporate strategies. Well, let me first define what do you mean by corporate strategies. Corporate strategies are the plans and actions that firms take to formulate and implement when managing a portfolio of business. So there were there are broad types of corporate strategies. There are vertical integration, that include forward and backward integration, related diversification and unrelated diversification. Now I would like to touch down each of these points and how the Tata Group involved themselves in these strategies. In case of forward integration, I would like to take up the case of Tata Bearings, which took up the steel from Tisco and brought about so that they made themselves more near to the customers, getting more near to the suppliers taking the steel from Tisco. Then in case of backward integration, we have the case of Tata Refractories and iron ore mines. They owned the iron ore mines. They got the hold of them, and they were getting the ores from there, and also the refractories, which were an integral part of the Tisco manufacturing systems. Now in case of related diversification, the companies focus on strategy, on synergy and on internal development. What do I mean by synergy is they tried to get into some fit. They trying to maybe like we can take the example of Tata going into from high commercial vehicle to LCVs to the cars. What they had in common the distribution channel, and they exploited this distribution channel, and even though they entered the market 6 months late, but they managed it quite well and came ahead out of it. So this was like an R&D. This is sort of first step in building synergy in identifying the potential for close fit among firms in different or similar businesses. Then we have the case of making competence hard to imitate and durable. What we feel is the brand value that Tata generated was the prime factor in making Tata such a big success, and this came about by the help of the culture that the company developed over a period of time. The people were willing to work, although they didn't pay well, although the salaries and perks were at not so attractive, but people wanted to be in the Tata Industries just because of their name, the culture that prevailed. They involved themselves in several charity institutions like the Tata Endowment Trust, the Cancer Research Institute, the National Council of Performing Arts. They gave funds to them, and they had excellent labor policies that made to work in Tata a really cherishing experience. Then on building on the synergy, they tried to focus on the managerial fit, a strong fit among different managers that run the underlying business, so that the developing the underlying business is successful. In this case, we can take the example of TAS. TAS, as you know, is a sort of a company that was formed into to make people to knit the underlying companies, and it developed highly professional and talented players that took over on different Tata Industries and made it a success. Now, on focusing on internal development, I would like to just explain what does internal development means. Firms could identify and exploit an underlying technology or skill that defines the way a product is designed or manufactured. They can start up with new products and or services by adding value to their key activities. They can develop and commercialize new products that borrow from the firm's brand name, recognition, manufacturing powers, and R&D capabilities, and they acquire new businesses that closely match and complement firm's existing strength. Just looking on these points, we can say that Tata's involved themselves in these related diversification activities well. We can take the example of TCS, which was initially owned by Tata companies, but it later got into handling the affairs of different companies. We can take the example of Tata Televentures and BSNL. That is not mentioned in the case. We can take the example how they built on this, and also the case of CMC and TCS. Now I come into the unrelated diversification. The unrelated diversification are it means the buying out high performing companies, or that can high performing companies in an attractive industry, or it may even buying or generating a relationship with cash poor company that could utilize their additional funds for a quick turnaround. And it may the examples that are brought forward in the case are in 1954 Tata Engineering collaborated with Daimler-Benz to introduce modern commercial vehicles to Indian road. So this is a sort of activity that comes under this head. And Tata bought the shareholdings of Forbes group of companies from Lec Industries UK. I don't have proper data on it, but this was one of the activities. They had a collaboration and foreign technical tie-ups with different companies. We can take the example of Tata Engineering, that is in collaboration with Hitachi Japan, Tata Unisys that became Tata Burrows, and it's now Tata Infotech, then Titan in collaboration with Casio and Tata McGraw-Hill. So these are the points under diversification. I would like to just go through the benefits of diversification that come through when a company goes into it. These are the company diversifies because the terrain may be very attractive, or they get to access the resources of the companies. It may be because of sharing of activities. In case of attractive terrain, there may be the reasons may be faster growth, higher profitability, greater stability. TCS immediately comes to our mind. Then we have Tisco and Telco. They operate on low margins, and the demand is cyclical in terms. They have ventured into exports and they are doing very good. That is the reason for that may be reason, and higher profitability will be is one of the aspects. Then access to resources. The case of BSNL is not mentioned, but as we through it's like getting into the physical assets and access to markets of the telecom industry. Then we have when we try to get technologies, skills and expertise, we can take the example of CMC. Sharing of activities are like systems are integrated and outsourcing is done at TCS. This will form a very good example. Then there are some demerits of diversification or costs involved in diversification. These are cost of ignorance. We can point out the example of Tata Indica, which was the Indica. The first model was not a very good success because they didn't have proper know-how about the marketing channels that go through. Later on, the Indica V2 has come up very nicely after the initial hiccup. Then we have cost of cooperation that involves. I would like to take the example. TAS is supposed to be for all Tata companies, but and the executives from TAS they go into different other companies. But this feeling creeps in. They would like to go into better companies or profitable companies. So this may be one of the demerits. So what should the Tatas do, or what have they done to just counter these negative points?
You have to end now.
Yeah.
You finished your time.
The two alternatives are selective focus on divestitures or spin-offs. Selective focus means Tatas have come out of textiles business and oil mills. They have also got out of non-core business like cement, Tomco, Lec-10, etc. So these form out the corporate strategies of Tata, and the weaknesses that we have underlined are the Tata philosophy. That is that was one of the reasons they involved. The primary was seeing the vision of JRD Tata. They involved in charity and trusteeship, and the low turnover rate. The second rung management, they were frustrated because the key management people at the top, they were not replaced till the very old age, and it's slow to change. We can take the example of Voltas. We can also take the example of 2 decades where there was sort of inactivity in the Tata story. This is all I have to say, sir.
Good, thank you. Questions? Yeah.
I'd like to ask you one question, that at what point of time the parks and benefits and salaries of Tatas were not that attractive compared to the industry side?
This I just wanted to say that they have developed a sort of company culture. Even they are not as that good. I am not saying it's very bad.
How is it related to strategy? This question.
They have developed a culture.
No, I am asking the questioner. How is your question related to strategy? Perks and salaries and compensation. Is it related to strategy? Yes. Yeah. What kind of strategy? So answer, this is a class on strategy. How is it related? To retain talent, to attract talent, right? So,
I think get the employee motivation.
Motivation. Motivation for what end? So that they remain with you, they work hard, they are satisfied, isn't it? Now, say you have competitors all around who are paying much more than you are paying. What can be your strategy to still retain your talent? Work culture and environment. So you have to work at it. And in case of Tata, were they successful? Did they work at it?
Yeah.
They were. Because although they were not the paymasters, even today they are not the highest paymasters. They are not even in the high bracket, they are in the middle. But still they retain talent. So obviously, as a strategy and a policy, they have been able to institutionalize a good work culture, a learning environment which attracts, retains and grows people. That is the strategy point. Tell me, I want to ask a question. Who was Jamshedji Tata and who was JRD Tata? Anyone wants to answer that? Son of a cousin was JRD. So the way this case is written, the first part is the Tata heritage. Second part, so it is during the founders who set the heritage, right? That is, founder was who? Jamshedji Tata. And then the next part is JRD Tata. So JRD Tata took over the reins. Okay. What did Jamshedji say about his values? Always subordinate the constant desire in his heart to improve the industrial and intellectual condition of the people of this country. So, and he put forward some strategies to enter into core industry, core sectors. When JRD was handing over the reins, the case starts with this. What did he say? Even as I am forcing myself to slowly disappear from the Tata companies. What does this connote? No, it doesn't at all connote that. He is reflecting, he is ruminating, he is sitting there. He was a man larger in size than anyone else in the house of Tatas. JRD was a patriarch, he was a grand old man and he was absolute father figure. If he wanted to stay, he could as well have stayed and people would have been happy. But what did he do? He forced himself to slowly disappear from the scene. Was it a part of strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that strategy?
Because they have mentioned because lower second rank professionals
Right.
Frustrated.
That was a professional strategy and it's a value based strategy. The value is what? Allow it to grow. Allow the values of the founder, that is his uncle, to perpetuate. Okay. And what does he say? I am content. He is not unhappy. I am content that throughout my tenure at the top, we have maintained a clean reputation. Remember, he could have changed that into a dirty reputation because the man at the top decides the direction. So he says, I am content that throughout my tenure we have maintained a clean reputation and this is very much to be noticed and yet managed to succeed in business. So he has demonstrated to the world that you can succeed in business even by ethical practices and that is why he is content. This is part of value being translated into a business strategy, the way you do business. Okay. And I am confident that though things will change after me, he knows there will be change, but what is his confidence? That our basic value will not change, will remain unchanged. So this is the core of the value dictating strategy, and the strategy dictating business plans. When he took over the reins, what did he say? What did he say?
Dedicate myself and the firm to the task of carrying on Jamshedji Tata's vision of a politically free and economically strong.
Right. So he could have inspired, Jamshedji inspired in his people to carry on the strategy. They could well have said, look, when the old man was here, things were different. Don't we all say that? Up to now things have changed. So we will have a different strategy. Now I have to go and give bribes and do all sorts of things. Everyone is doing it. If you don't do it, you will disappear. But they did not do it. I think this is a great example of how values can be institutionalized and it will be carried on by another generation. Okay. So, yes.
So does this mean that when there is a leader, when he is leading an organization, should he also keep at the back of his mind the number or the people who will take his place when he leaves?
Yes. That is known as succession planning.
So we also discussed a case in the class about somebody who, educational institution in Ahmedabad, when there is a flood. I don't remember the name of the case. So there also, I mentioned that our group mentioned that he has no successor in mind. That was a disadvantage. But I guess that the class said that it is too early for him to think about his successor. So I just want to know that what point of time should a leader think of his successor, or it should always be there at the back of his mind?
Well, there are two answers to it. If it's a family promoted company, then someone, as he gets older, he must think, well, if he is still capable like Mohan Singh Oberoi, you see, at age 70, well then he may think of succession planning. But in a professionally run company like Hindustan Lever or L&T, you can't do it. It's not founded by, it's not an owner driven company, it's a professional company. Then you have to set in motion and institutionalize steps which will automatically, the mechanisms will choose a successor. Like in Lever, there is an unwritten rule in Lever that the chairman will retire at 60. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, that the chairman must stay at least for 5 years minimum, preferably 7-8 years as chairman, because if he doesn't, it's too short a time to bring in any significant contributions to the company. Rule number 3, in order for you to get someone and promote him to chairman at age 53, let us say, all right, you have to do selection, potential development of younger people to fit into that position. Rule number 4, don't bring people from outside. Try and get your own talent from inside. Why? Because the culture we have built as a professional company of excellence will be maintained if you have people from the top. So how the thread runs through, therefore when they start right from the recruitment. They have a elite cadre, they have management trainees, they have engineering trainees. Management trainees are rotated so that they at least know 3 major areas of business before they can be selected. Along the way, the screening process goes on. It is done very efficiently. Very few companies that I know of do this process. But the result seems to have worked, because you have illustrious chairmen, one after the other, who come, and retire from Hindustan Lever at 60 only, and many are picked up by their parent Unilever for higher positions on the global scale. Yeah. So here is another example how human resources, the strategy of your human resources can be translated into a plan and implementation of the same. Okay. We will end now, and after a 5 minutes break, we will have the 3 other presentations. Okay. We will do a bit of discussion as we go along, because we may not be left with much time at the end.